So the quarterbacks of the 2021 draft class have been evaluated. They have landed. They have been measured. They have been weighed. They have been stacked on their boards for all the world to see. Which one are you wanting? Because we've done all the work, and now it's time to reap the rewards. And how do we do that? By pointing at those boards that everyone looks at and telling you where they're wrong. And it should be no surprise on the quarterback market this year, there is an overpay and there is a value buy. And the way that we go about that is by putting talent with system output expectations. And if you aren't new to Football Unlocked, you understand that we talk a lot about talent and we talk a lot about scheme and how they work off of each other. Because understanding all this stuff about football is great, but how can I profit off of it? How can I win my league? How can I draft the best players? How can I place the best bets? And if that sounds good to you, there's a button right there. You know what to do, and thank you in advance. When you run this class through the systems and through the talent evaluation aspect of it, really you break this group into 4 tiers. And the first tier on the bottom, you can pretty much call it garbage, because if you think Kellen Mond is someone you want to gamble on, if you succeed, get ready for Justin Jefferson fans to hate you forever. And if you think Kyle Trask is in a great situation to be the heir to Brady, remember Jameis Winston? It's going to be much worse than that. Ellinger, Book, none of these quarterbacks are good enough to start in the NFL. It's a simple fact. The only quarterback on this tier who even has a little bit of interest is Davis Mills, who ended up in Houston. Now, Houston is a terrible team, which is going to put Houston in the top 3 of the draft next year and putting Davis Mills into a Gardner Minshew prison. If you want to gamble on that, go ahead. But other than 1 year, if Watson isn't playing, I don't see much opportunity there, because you'll go into the carousel and you'll be waiting 3-4 years for that to pay off. And continuing with the chalk outlook, on tier 3, standing alone, McCorkle Jones. In Mac Jones, you see a severely mental trait dominant quarterback, which means that you shouldn't see the best of him until his 3rd year starting in the league. Now, does that clock start in year 1 at any point in time? Your guess is as good as mine. That depends on Cam. But we know we won't see Stidham, thank goodness. But let's get a few things out of the way. 1, Mac Jones is not Brady. Stop it. He is not Brady. 2, in this last 8 years that Brady was in New England, the offense was top 7 every single year. Top 7 in scoring every single year. Do you expect this offense, even though it's improved this year, to be a top 7 offense in this league with a lesser quarterback? You don't. On top of that, in those years where the New England Patriots were a top 7 offense, those 8 years, Brady was not a top 8 quarterback in 4 of them. This isn't necessarily a quarterback points-driven offense. So in Mac Jones, you're seeing a quarterback who's going to have a slow start in an offense that will not rank in the top 10. And if you're expecting anything in fantasy better than a good backup or a good tier 2 starter in a Superflex, you're being overly optimistic. But tier 2 and tier 1 is where we shake things up a little bit. And you have to ask yourself a very important question, especially if you're in dynasty leagues. How long are you willing to wait? The now prospect on tier 2 is Trevor Lawrence. And now everyone is telling you to take Trevor Lawrence either at the top of your draft or pick 2. He should be pick 3 if you want now contribution. Everyone expects him to start, but if you look at the offense that Urban Meyer runs, it looks very similar to Ken Wisenhunt, McCoy, the Chargers offense in those years there. This is not a prolific offense for quarterbacks, and this is going to drag his value down. The talent on one hand was overrated significantly. The talent around him, especially on the offensive line, isn't that great. And then you're looking at an offense that limits quarterbacks. He should be 3 or 4 on your board. But the patience play is Justin Fields. Justin Fields should be quarterback 3 or 4 on the board, depending on how patient you're willing to be. And this is because I have zero faith in Matt Nagy. Nagy has run one of the worst offenses with Trubisky and Foles in the last 2 years. Even worse, Nagy's offense caps the effectiveness of David Montgomery. This offense, when it was run by Laser at the end of the season, ranked very high. It ranked very, very low with Nagy across the board. And that's just half of why this should be a patience play. It is unlikely that Fields starts day 1, and that sounds crazy. But look at Vegas to see where the Bears are projected to be this year. That's 7 wins, 7-10. And if you look at the early schedule for the Chicago Bears, they are set to go 3-6 before the bye. If you put Fields on the field day one and go 3-6, Nagy is fired in the bye. And there is a long track record of coaches who are either on the hot seat or in year one looking at that veteran stability as the best way to put in their culture or to keep their job. It should be expected that Andy Dalton is going to start this year for the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields will get it turned over to him at some point, but we have absolutely no idea what offense that's going to be handed to. Could it be Bill Lazor? His offense doesn't really fit Justin Fields. There's a lot of efficiency ripped out of it. There's the boot game, and then there's max protect verticals. That will work with Fields, but that is the inefficient part of the offense. If it's Nagy's offense, you still have to worry about Nagy calling the right plays for Justin Fields. Year one does not look good for Justin Fields, in my opinion. But with Chicago, it's only one coaching change away from getting a lot better. And that is where you look at for Justin Fields. Year one, rough. Year two, coaching change. Year 3, year 4, year 5 is where Justin Fields can pay off. So much that if they put him in the right offense, which could be a Stefanski, a Turner offense, a Sirianni Reich offense, that would fit him very well. If they put that offense together on the field for him in year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, you could see him pushing up to fantasy points on the level with the guys on tier 1. And tier 1 includes 2 quarterbacks, Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. Zach Wilson is falling to quarterback 4 consistently. That is a value buy. Because when you look at the scheme that is being brought over from San Francisco, there are 3 teams that have shown a history to run something very similar to this. The Tennessee Titans, the Atlanta Falcons, and the San Francisco 49ers. Matt Ryan blew up in this offense. Ryan Tannehill blew up in this offense. Jimmy Garoppolo was solid. So is Zach Wilson better than Jimmy Garoppolo? You bet he is. And as the left side of the offensive line comes together for the Jets very nicely, and as this offense goes through their year 1 Shanahan lull and the spiked interceptions you should expect to see from Zach Wilson, year 1 is going to be rocky, but he still should be quarterback 1 in year 1. But if you miss on him year 1, you want to buy him for year 2, 3, 4, and 5. Because that's when this offense tends to take off. And the weapons that the Jets have assembled make it look that they are one piece away from doing something very impressive. This means Zach Wilson could elevate into the top 10 scorers in all fantasy football quarterbacks in year 2. And if you're taking a quarterback early, you don't want just a starter. You want one of the top 12 starters. And that's what Zach Wilson profiles to be. So he is on tier 1. But we save the best for last, because if you are willing to wait for Shanahan to let his dinosaur soul get out of the way, because he will start Jimmy Garoppolo day 1, and if he doesn't, buckle up because Trey Lance is going to be something else. But having a little bit of patience will land you quarterback 1 out of this draft for fantasy football production. You look over at Tannehill, you look at Trey Lance, and you say Tannehill numbers plus a little bit in the running game. That's a high-ranking fantasy football quarterback, and that's exactly where Trey Lance is headed. This offense's efficiency is second to none. It truly is, and if you look across the board on San Francisco and what they've assembled to have for the next 3 years, this team has the capabilities of scoring number 1 points in the league. And that's going to be an offense led by Trey Lance. And if you look at what Tannehill has done in his efficiency with Arthur Smith, and then you up it a level, and you add more to the run game from the quarterback position, that's a top 8 quarterback. And it will take a little time, because half a season, a full season, Jimmy Garoppolo is going to play. But once that goes south, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, Trey Lance will be the highest scoring quarterback from this draft class. So what that means, thanks to your lovely fantasy football board creators, is that you are overpaying for Trevor Lawrence and you are stealing Zach Wilson. Everybody else kind of fits into where they're supposed to be, but those 2 are your discrepancies. Do with that what you will. Because if you think picking a quarterback at 1 who's going to score worse than the quarterback picked at 7 is a way to win in your fantasy football leagues, Yeah, that's the absolute opposite of the truth because fantasy football is about talent, scheme, and value. But 1 and 2 off the board for Dynasty Fantasy Football should be Trey Lance and Zach Wilson. Just giving you one more chance to bail off the Trevor Lawrence hype while there's still time. I love you guys. We need you. Stay strong, and I'll see you on the other side.